Hey, also, so far we've talked about triangles' angles and what they all add up to and what happens when we have an exterior angle. We have classified triangles based on their lengths, the lengths of their sides, and the measures of their angles. And today we're going to talk about how the lengths of sides and the measures of angles are related to each other and how we can order them. So if I look at this first triangle here right here, I have the measures of the angles. So I know that angle U is 75 degrees, angle W is 48 degrees, and angle V is 57 degrees. I don't know how long the sides are exactly, but what I can do knowing the sizes of the angles is figure out which side would be the biggest and which side would be the smallest, and then which side would be somewhere in between them. Sometimes I call that side the mediumist side, and I'm not totally sure that's a real word, but it works for these types of problems. And so I want to order these sides from least to greatest, and so that means I want to put the smallest side first. And sometimes I will do something like this, so I know I want to start with my least side, my smallest side. So I'm going to go find my smallest angle. My smallest angle in this triangle is angle W. It's 48 degrees. And so what happens here is I have two sides that are making angle W. Those two sides make angle W. And then I have a third side that's not making angle W, that's actually across from it. And so angle W, how big it is actually determining how long this other side is going to be. So the smaller that angle gets, the smaller this side needs to be. The bigger that angle gets, the bigger that side needs to be. And so if angle W is the smallest angle, that means it's going to make this side between U and V the smallest side. And that is a segment, and so I'll put a little segment symbol on top. I'm This is going to get a little messy, but I want to leave my writing on here. So when I go find the biggest side, I want to find the biggest angle. Angle U is 75 degrees. Angle U is made by this side and this side. And so that angle being 75 degrees determines how big that side is. We don't know exactly how big it is, but we know it's got to be bigger than if that angle was smaller. And so since that's the biggest angle in my triangle, this side is the biggest side in my triangle. And so my greatest side, I'll choose a different shade of yellow here so you can see it better, is going to be between V and W. And we'll put a little line on top to say it's a segment. And then my last side that's remaining, my mediumist side, is going to be the one determined by my medium angle. It's going to be that side, UW. A little process of elimination shows us that that should be the side that has the mediumist length. And so I can carry on like this and use the same idea in any triangle if I know all three angles. Or if I know two angles, I can find the third angle and then I'll know all three. And I can figure out which side should be the smallest, which one should be the biggest. So here we go again. I have that is my smallest angle, and so a good idea would be to highlight which sides create that angle, because the side that doesn't create that angle is going to be the one that's affected by that angle, and so that means that QP is going to be my smallest side. 78 is my biggest angle. It's made by these two sides. So that means this side is going to be the one that is affected by how big that angle is, making it the biggest side. Side RP. And so that leaves us with this last side that I don't have an arrow pointing to. I think these arrows might help you figure out which side is left over. Side RQ is going to have a length, if we were to measure these, that's bigger than QP and smaller than RP, somewhere in the middle, my mediumist side. I'm going to keep using that word that I don't know if it's a word. But if it helps you remember, then it's good for me. We do one more. Again, I'm still going least to greatest. I might ask you to go greatest to least. You just please, read questions carefully always. My smallest angle is that 30-degree angle made by these two sides, and so therefore that's the side it's going to affect. That is side VX. That is my smallest side. My biggest angle is made by these two sides, which means it affects the size of that side, VW. And then we have one more side left over with no arrow pointing to it. It's that one right there, XW. It's going to have a length somewhere in between those other two sides. Again, we can't figure out how long these sides are, but we can figure out which one's going to be the biggest, the smallest, and the mediumest side. So I want you to order these from least to greatest, just like we did. You're not going to be able to type that little bar on top of the letters, so just separate them using a comma, and there's no need to try and put a little bar on top. I'll understand that the program doesn't allow for that. So list these sides from least to greatest. Each side should be named using 2 letters. Do the best that you can. If you need help, ask. I'll have the answer here for you when after you answer the question, so you can check to see if you got it right. So one thing to point out is if you wrote TS instead of ST, that's okay. We can rearrange the orders of the names of these sides, and it still tells us about the same side. What's important is that you have the sides in the correct order. The smallest side is ST. So you might guess that we could do the opposite. If we know how long the sides are, we can figure out which angle is the biggest, which angle is the smallest, which angle is the mediumest. And we use the same idea, just sort of in reverse order. So if I look at this first triangle, this time I'm going from greatest to least. It's always important to read directions. I'm going to go look for my biggest side. That's this one that's 16 units long. And so if I do the opposite, I had an arrow in the last ones pointing to that side. And so that means the other two sides make the angle that is affected by this side being the biggest. So that angle is angle E. That is my biggest angle. And then my smallest side is 11. It's that side right there. So that means these other two sides make the angle it's related to. Angle F. And if you put these little arrows in here indicating what angle you're looking at, we have one angle left over that has no arrow in it. That means it must be our mediumest angle. If we were to measure these with a protractor, angle D would have a measure, a degree measure somewhere between E and F. Bigger than E, or I'm sorry, bigger than F, smaller than E. The mediumest angle of the three. So I can do this the same way for any problem. If I know how long the sides are, I can figure out which angle is the biggest, which angle is the mediumest, which angle is the smallest. This is my biggest side. I like the idea of pointing an arrow to it, sort of doing the reverse of what we did before. That means these two sides make the biggest angle, angle D. Then I'll go find my smallest. That means these two sides make my smallest angle, angle C. And we have one angle left over that has no little markings in it. That is angle B. Let me do one more. I'm still going from greatest to least, so I'm going to find my biggest side. That means it's related to angle X. That's my biggest angle. There's my smallest side. Again, I like the arrows. sort of allows me to visually see which piece is left over. So if I have an arrow pointing to this side, that means my angle is made by those two sides. So angle W. And I forgot to put a little mark in there. So if you put the marks in there as well, it lets you know, hey, angle Y is the angle I haven't talked about yet. I found the smallest angle and the biggest angle. Angle Y is left over. That means angle Y goes in the middle. Angle Y has a measure that is smaller than angle X, bigger than angle W. So go ahead and give this one a try. You're not going to be able to put the angle symbol in. So list them from greatest to least. I'll give you a hint. If two are the same size, it doesn't matter which one goes first. Just put a comma in between the letters. You can just type the letter of the angle, and that would be fine. So we have an isosceles triangle here because we have two sides of the same length. That means angle X and angle W are going to be the same measure. And so it doesn't matter if you put X or W first. Just make sure one of them is first and one of them is second. And that makes your smallest angle angle Y. So as always, if you need help, please do raise your hand. We will both be happy to help you. And make sure you do these practice problems. Take your time. Use the examples from the lesson to help you. You can go find the notes on Canvas if you need them. As ever, don't get stuck without asking for help. We're here to help you.